Kalask!
Greetings, Kalask. Welcome.
Greetings. The Rusty Person enters my collective. Now, first verbals, we hope we are sufficiently understandable, yes? You're aware. You're currently undergoing a certain energetic state. You're considering perhaps Schwein or the traditions of your various cultures, one thing or the other. You're also just past the full moon, so to some degree, your energy might be somewhat heightened. Well, measure all your current energies of your year of 2020, as you were somewhat anticlimactic, perhaps. Compared to what we envisioned, it's been somewhat of a letdown. We're still somewhat intense for your species, but not nearly as intense as your decade's likely going to be. However, this is one of the dates wherever you're sending out, or numerous days, has a much greater effect than perhaps other dates in your calendar to some degree because of the collective idea you're creating around the whole concept, and of course, the whole idea of it being a certain, well, a number, a certain energetic agreement by various species, entities, etc. that exist in your planetary body, in your consciousness grid, or else you are called such. Now, this will to some degree affect where you go from here on out, as everything else affects where you go from then on out, right? Just in this case being somewhat more heightened, perhaps tripled or quadrupled, or compared to what you're normally setting out as a feedback system. Obviously, your planet also here to some degree because you're all pulsing out energy frequently due to your own decisions of what you're projecting on the political arena, be that your current virus situation or whatever, which is, again, from our perspective, no longer really in effect. It's more or less an unnecessary measurement from what we would consider. However, your species might differ, your own way, your own physical condition, your biology to interact with viruses, etc. might differ from ours. But from our perspective, as far as we understand your species, there's no longer any immediate danger whatsoever. However, it's possible that the whole paranoia might lead on to some degree until your beginning of your next year, perhaps not too much longer, however, from there on out. But again, nothing is decided. We are just forecasting. We can predict it. We're just forecasting where you're just moving. Obviously, also your current political arena is projecting a lot on the idea of a presidential election from our perspective, as we mentioned previously. There's not much difference in terms of what we envision for your immediate future or following up depending on those smaller, comparable, minute changes. However, no matter what your outcome of your current election, your presidential race of the United States is very likely going to be upheaval and civil unrest unfolding further from there on out, right? Perhaps around the date or perhaps somewhat after such. This is likely going to escalate further. Again, it's also very likely it's going to escalate further in the Western European area and somewhere the warlike situation continuing around your western Russian border, Eastern Europe could reach somewhat further up. I'm not exactly certain again, we're not predicting the future, just describing energy the direction it's moving, and currently those are still the most likely scenarios on the follow-up ideas we mentioned previously. Of course, you could also have a potentiality of completely de-escalating by increasing your corona pandemic over and more or less, well, the reaction to it by the government coming in conflict with the reaction to it by the population. If that clashes further, will also be an option to play out some of those frequencies. Entirely up to you. Currently, that's what you're pulsing out, and again, whenever you're pulsing out your current date, it's to a large degree overabundant with the energy of, well, uncertainty, so therefore you will create more of it. Not the idea of certainty itself, but situation that will give you more uncertainty where you're not sure what will happen. Remember, no matter what you pulse out, when you tune to the frequency, that's what your emotional compass is for, right? Which we don't. You get a feedback system to on some level of whatever it is that you are creating more of, right? Not so much when you're sick of a virus, you're getting infected, etc., or something like it, or when you're sick of a certain political event, it will happen, or likely. It's more the idea what you're sensing will likely bring forth the idea of what we understand. Yes, we are also speaking here as an outward analyst, right? Like you have political or economic analysts, we are having human analysts or psychology to some degree, right? Of how your own emotional body directs with your frequency, the idea which again what we are picking up from your speech and why we're directing with you in the first place, right? That when you're in a certain state and you have a certain realization of whatever you're sensing, that's likely going to be the feedback system of you're creating more of if you're looking in the direction of the future, which again is just as malleable as your past or present, particularly currently since you have created an agreement about this particular date. Now, before we go off in tangents on any other idea, is there something you wish to share about your current date or any of the other topics related to it? Verbal. Now, then there being the idea what you're currently having in sort of religious teachings, right? Especially your so-called on Abraham directed religious ideas where there's also conflict among those in particular, also those that are coming in conflict with your first more materialist worldviews, etc. Now, from a geopolitical strategic point, we cannot fully immerse ourselves in a human perspective as our ideas of what's going on Earth is much different. The way we would react is much different than what your species reacts. Again, we still see the Erdogan person and the whole nations and the whole person, not so much the Muslim religion, but more the idea of the political nation of Turkey and the surrounding nations being sort of a wild card, but the greatest likelihood of being the starter of a massive conflict, as it's neither aligned with either your Western or Eastern lines, no particular smart move more on perspective, but we see it as likely being a scenario where there would be an escalation from this motivation, which does not necessarily mean it's going to be one area or another. Again, we see energy, but very likely it's going to be, if there's going to be conflict being triggered, not the reason for the triggering, it's likely going to come from this region. Now, we shared earlier, religiously speaking, what your ideas are based upon, your historical figures, the Jesus, Moses, right? Abraham, etc. Those people were not what your religions are based on them, rather made out of them. Originally, many different character traits and teachings were lumped upon them, so we don't want to go on tangents on the religious teaching here, just sharing it for the sake of more your diplomatic relations right now, rather than historical accuracy, which in our opinion, none of your currently existing religions have. Anyways, they're all highly falsified from older teachings that were copied again of older teachings, etc. But Europeans aware of such to greater detail so there's no necessity. Unless you want us to elaborate further on one or the other detail. If not, feel free to go ahead with your questioning while we fill some water in the vessel.
All right, Lisa, you're up first.
Wait. Oh, well, I was just going to ask a question. Am I able to be heard? I didn't check first.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go for it.
Okay, great. Greetings, Kalask. Strength and honor.
Greetings, the Lisa person, yes.
Yes. We were just talking about what we were just. Oh, shit. I was going to have a question about. No, it's so funny. It keeps on happening to me. When I want to ask you a question or something, and then it like goes away. But you were just talking about. I was thinking that something changes because of. Anyways, can you tell me exactly what we were just talking about? The last part. Oh shit. Hold on a second. Either way, I'm just going to continue. And I think things also change because it's how we feel about it. So then we create it. And yeah, anyway, so, but that wasn't even it. Hi, how are you? You're collective. I'm excited. I know I speak with you guys quite often, not just through David, but how are things going with you guys there?
Yes.
What are you doing? What are you concentrating on, and focusing on right now?
Well, right now, we're focusing always on integrating your frequencies, but particularly when you're asking the question, right? Interacting with us, you're always interacting with a version of us that's more or less interpreting your frequencies as a collective, as a species, right?
That's one of the ones I was going to ask about. Continue.
Right. You also sort of a particular person, contact person to some degree, as you're aware, the messy person is a certain individual, more or less of a special, etc. There's also female of the species that's more directing with you when you're directly tuned to our frequencies. There's the easiest, the most conductive to such a direction. So therefore you also might have a more personal interaction, if you wish. Now,
Yes.
certainly. Also due to your dialing of our number or other symbols you wear, physically you're creating much more of a presence visit. That's something we greatly recommend to individuals in your species, that wish to ground their frequency more easily, as we've done so. As you're aware, your subconscious mind second guesses, is uncertain if there's really connections for us, so simply using our symbol is a very, very easy way to circumvent that and simply go directly to our frequency, and your subconscious mind will not create any problems, right?
Yes.
It will be more succinct.
It is too. I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Cool. So I like the word conflict a little bit more because it's about creating, really.
Correct. Yes.
So
creating is destruction, vice versa.
Yes, and so that is quite great. And then also there was another word. I've been using the word utilize more often because everything that I'm seeing or bringing in, it's for me to utilize. I like that word. It's like a tool is a good one too, but I've been utilizing the things that I've been bringing in, that they are a benefit for me. If I decide at the moment that I don't actually want to do that one, I just go to the one that I'm more conducive with, or that I'm creating or wanting at that moment, and I'm utilizing my shit.
Yes. Your reason it appears in your reality in the first place because there's something you can get from it.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what I've been really feeling. And it's like, I've been thinking like, because I was coming more from the victim part, and
Yes.
now I'm not coming from that anymore. I'm more empowered, and I'm seeing that the things in front of me are things that I'm seeing and doing that's for me. I mean, why wouldn't it be? And then the things that end up coming up like trauma and whatnot, those were just things that were burying and that I didn't really want to look at. So going through them and looking at them and letting them come up it changes uh, my outlook or how I feel about things. Yes.
You're simply integrating more of your consciousness, which is aware of all of this at all times.
Wonderful. Which kind of brings up the dragon. Is their energy is that, I mean, really, it's like a reptilian that's able to fly, right? I mean, it besides that, is the frequency different, or because they're non-physical mostly?
Well, there are many stories in mythologies, many of them are referring simply to us. There are indeed beings that are, well, what you might consider perhaps a higher consciousness of a reptilian species, which you could also term as such. Many of the stories in your mythologies also found their ways there, not from physical interacting with those entities, but simply from having a connection with them that are not physical, that are what you then would consider dragonic, etc. And most stories in your mythology simply refers to our species in general.
So is it because, did we put wings on them maybe because it's more of a non-physical or air or something? I mean, in a way, even though there are some that have obviously wings, but the symbolism of wings, I was wondering if that was put in there for that, but it's actually, reptilian. So.
There are some that have wings, yes. However, non-physical everything is malleable, and the reasons being put in mythology often simply referring to the fact that beings came from the sky, right? And landed, and that's the reason it being depicted with wings. But one doesn't equal out the other, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yes. So there was a video, or the last session that we had. You spoke on so many things and information that I wanted to know about. And so then I didn't know how to respond because it was just so much. But also at the same time, there was someone that came through the line, a reptilian, or sounded like an alligator. Do you remember this?
We're aware of what you're referring to, but we're not aware if there was any entity on our end interacting with the communication, perhaps on yours.
Wow. What would that mean then? Like, I mean, because it was there. I mean, you can hear it on the recording. It'd be like a dragon or a crocodile alligator when they're making their sounds, and it was pretty prominent. So I was thinking, because it was you were explaining to me about the non-physical, that when I'm out in nature, that it may not be like an alligator or a snake, but it'd be more non-physical. And then that's when the sound came through.
Very possible you manifested, you attracted something in your physical reality to some degree, or from the non-physical, whatever called such, it was a symbolization or a manifestation of what you were pulsing out, as you always do.
Wow. And so yeah, it's pretty awesome for me to actually see that I'm doing that, and on a more consistent basis, and seeing it and acknowledging it. And it brings up the responsibility part. Like, I'm actually doing this, and I do everything. And
Yes, indeed. It doesn't mean you need to be consciously aware of it all times and counter check everything, right?
yes, exactly. That kind of screws it up.
Yes. And you make you trip over. But more the idea of just being in the moment and just focusing what you want to create and let the details smooth out.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So, Christy, how many minutes do I have? I'm just going to speak with Kalask most likely.
Yeah, you probably have about 20 or just shy of that.
Holy crap. I mean, that's great. Wait, 20 more minutes?
It's like 27 per person.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Awesome. Okay. So maybe not. Okay.
But you're
I
not
did
speaking with Metax, so that's why.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Thank you, Christy. Kalask, there was a couple of questions I did want to ask about my connection with the military. And I know that all things are happening at once. It's pretty much like I don't have like details, and so just kind of putting connections together and going with it. And I do see sometimes it activates codes or different things that I'm wanting to go more into and whatnot. And why what I'm doing there with the military and or empire, and then yeah. And do you know any info about that?
Well, you are also attracting certain connections from any military, from the empire, from our structures, due to your own consciousness, right?
Yes.
Due to your own pulsation, frequencies, in our particular species, you remember, our males, females, etc. hold certain frequency within your species, are very often more connected to the masculine, or perhaps if you want to your spiritual terminology, where the fuck, right? More darker energies, correct?
Okay.
That you are perhaps are working on to integrate to a large degree, also just for your own benefit, but also from others that are lined and linked into those frequencies, and therefore you keep attracting, of course, certain relations, certain events, experiences that are very much in alignment with such. Now, where do you want to take those frequencies entirely up to you, as you're aware, you can utilize everything.
Yes. I know. It's almost like I can answer my own questions. I mean,
you do.
Yes, and you are a part of that, and I utilize Kalask and many others for your knowledge and connection and wisdom and greatness. So wow, okay. So I mean, I really can just really answer my own questions in a way.
You are.
Just, yeah. Would like through DNA wise, would it be coming more through my dad or my mom when it comes to connecting like military wise? DNA. What?
Well,
So funny. Okay.
you're a mix of certain concepts, but more likely to your masculine frequency, therefore patriarchal line. However, it entirely depends on what you want to see and such, right?
Yes.
There's no need for you to differentiate in this case.
You're right. Yes.
You tune to a certain frequency, right? And then you find ways in the material where to relate to it.
Yes, you are correct. Thank you. I do that too anyways. So
Everyone does in some degree, they're just unaware of it.
it's quite
The same way you are pulsing your frequency and then ultimately you're answering your own questions, very much correct, so, right?
yes.
Ultimately, all we are doing is pulsing back those frequencies and sharing our opinion, what you're pulsing out back to yourself. because you, from your ego perspective, often don't have the same permission that you have, right? When you are tuned to your, well, into beings like us, for example, then it can bridge a gap. But ultimately, you could do so yourself if you would give yourself the permission, which again could alter your experience of your current reality, because your intellectual mind can't follow your frequency as smoothly.
Yes, it depends on what I want to do.
Yes. And how adamant you're about it, how much willpower you're putting into it. The more
Yes.
wishy-washy you are, the more you pulse your frequencies in all directions, and you send out one thing and take it back again, etc., etc., so it depends how focused you are.
Yes. Thank you for that. That's
Yes.
and again, like it comes to, I don't even know what to say except for wanting to hear maybe something about like what you
Yes.
would like to express to me or to us at this time, personally.
Personally, yes.
Yeah.
You're somewhat well grounded, personally, right now, but you usually are compared to other members of your species, giving you also an easier way to interact with our frequency, right?
Yes.
One moment, water. Obviously, there's still some work on your third eye, so you're more able to interpret our frequency smoothly, so there's no more the idea of your second guessing yourself, for example, right?
Yes. Agreed.
Quite common, or not something particularly bad.
No, I can see it's more like hesitation or
Yes, your cycle to some degree also, as you were more permanent issue, or you're sending energy back and forth between the two. Between your third eye and cycle, sometimes more than one, sometimes more than the other, sometimes more being an enjoyment of the physical, and other times having an easier time interpreting non-physical frequencies, but alternating.
Is there anything that, any tips maybe that I can go, I mean, take a look at on how to, because like I understand that we or I seem to have different things obviously going on with the sacral or the energy there.
Many beings of your species currently have, your current day and age, or under the last few thousands of years, to some degree they are linked to third eye. Remember, all chakras to some degree are linked to the ones, so to speak, that are removed from your center heart, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So those two, for example, are linked.
Like the crown and the root chakra would be
Yes, or
linked.
your
Okay.
throat and the solar plexus, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That, I mean, it does.
Yes.
Yeah. I can. Okay. And just yeah, working through letting things crop up, come up, and just being more smooth about it, not worrying about it because there is no time. And I mean, so.
Yes, also just focus energy on there and just let it pour into there. You can use visualization, there are excuses, ultimately just energy in there, and then it will bring up things automatically.
Yeah. 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 And I guess that's probably what happens when it does bring up things. it's almost automatic where you kind of shut it down probably, or do something, or someone walks in, or
You
something makes a
attract
noise.
events, yes.
Yes. So I see that. Yeah.
So if you sell out certain ideas connected to something, be it your sexuality, be that your interpretation to the non-physical, or your ideas, prejudices, or interpretations of the non-physical, etc., whatever there is, it's being, of course, brought to the forefront when you're pouring energy there, and then it simply attracts something in the physical that is more or less a reflection of what it is, and you're pulsing out the connection to it. When you're pulsing out nothing, then you're perhaps not interacting the experience, but also you're not learning anything, because you simply refuse to put any energy there in the first place, and it's likely a shock reaction. Most of your so-called blockades, or damaged chakra, whatever the fuck you're calling such, all of them, right, are always because you refuse to put energy there, because out of a shock reaction you decided not to put energy in there whatsoever. Like, for example, you hurt your finger, use a physical metaphor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, well, admitting that your fingers are bleeding or broken or whatever, you simply refuse to look at it and have any sensation there. You're aware sometimes when you hurt your physical body one way or the other, it becomes numb, right?
Yes.
And when it's numb for too often, it can get fouled, fall off, etc. When there are no nerves in there anymore, extreme case of manifestation of a non-attachment to a part of your body, of course. Now,
Yeah.
the minute one is simply that you are refusing to have energy in the heart. You're withdrawn your life energy from a certain area, and then therefore it's becoming active, and you can pretend there's no stuck energy there, but of course that's when it manifests in subtle ways.
Yes. Yes, it does. And all of it's good, anyways. I mean, for me, it's obviously everything that I'm doing is for me, and so I'm. Yeah, I'm not sure what you know, was afraid of before, or still. That it's just me. I was wondering also, like, obviously, when I'm talking with you, I am bringing forth a certain version of Kalask, and so in a way, am I creating you in my reality? Like I'm creating the version of you.
You're creating your understanding of us, yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. That's actually, thank you. That's a very good word. My understanding of you. Yes, I like that a lot. That works. Yes. For me, I mean that makes a lot of sense, because I'm doing that with other people that I'm face to face communicating with. I'm creating something that I understand of them. That's why they're there. Cool.
Not just people, everything.
Everything. Yes. Everything.
All experience. You're creating your understanding of the experience of whatever is taking place, whether you're observing, you're creating your understanding of it, which makes it possible for a thing to appear in your reality whatsoever. The same way your eyes are pulsing out light and then basically bring the information back to you. The same thing happens energetically with everything.
Hmm. Appreciations to you, and your energy and your wisdom and everything. Thank you.
Yes, very appreciated.
And I also appreciate myself for actually letting it happen, and
Wonderful.
creating it. So I think that's good for me, and it's good to speak with you again this way, and I will continue to connect with you in other ways. Strength and honor, Kalask.
Strengths, honor, but courage to listen.
Yes, courage, appreciations.
Water for the vessel, and then Ryan's up next.
Hey, greetings, KALASK.
Great.
So like picking up where I left off talking with Metax during the last private session, he mentioned that like reptilians in general. Well, I don't know if he was talking about just your race or reptilians in general, but he was saying like you're in a constant state of stress. Is that? Do you agree with that? Like, do you feel like you're always in a state of stress?
It has festered to some degree. It's become, well, what you might consider standard, normal. For example, your current corona crisis being considered a new normal, correct?
Right.
Well, for us, it's simply been what you would have an equivalent of millions of years of a particular emergency situation becoming simply normal.
But like, how do you focus when you're stressed out? I mean, like for me, I can't focus on my work. I can't do anything. I mean, how do you like do scientific research or do anything when you're in a constant state of stress? I mean, I don't know. Are you guys just used to it?
We simply have a single-pointed focus.
Okay. What is that focus, if you don't mind me asking?
That
Conquest?
shifts. That depends.
Okay. Okay.
Very often it's conquest, yes, but not always.
Okay. And yeah, like Metax told me that you guys were heating up the situation when I was like really annoyed by one of my coworkers that was like kept emailing me over and over again. Yeah, like I'm not offended that you guys were heating it up. I mean, I think like in the long term it's been for the best, but I mean why were you guys heating up the situation? Just to I don't know, like just to see what would happen or like as an experiment, or were you trying to help me or just entertain yourselves or what?
All of those combined, whenever interacting with you, it is on some level always of a mutual beneficial situation. In this case, indeed, we try to learn something or just to see how you would interact with the person when we heat up the situation. For example, if it heats up, so we did our best to do so, right? The same way when you're interacting with the vessel and pull through certain situations to make sure that we have a learning lesson and for the vessel to also have a learning experience on its own, or you in this case, or anybody else on your species, it's just to us, right? And of course, always entertaining.
Right. Okay. Yeah, like I was also telling Metax how like I want to do a really detailed map of Atlantis if that would even be possible. I mean, I know like there's a bunch of different options, so I mean, it seems to me like it might be kind of pointless. Like, I might draw the map a certain way, and then like somebody else could tune into a different timeline and draw their own map, and then like they would look at mine and be like, "Your map's totally inaccurate." I drew it a totally different way. I mean, what do you think? Like, if I were to ask you guys like a bunch of detailed questions, like where the mountain ridges were, where the biggest cities, the forests, the rivers, and all those specific details, like would that just be wasting my time? Since there are so many different timelines.
It depends what you wish to achieve. If you want a detailed map as a form of presenting it, yes, perhaps not very well investment of your time, or on your end, if you just want to have the learning experience of the malleability of time-space, the continuum, right? That could be useful because you can see that there are such many different versions, but also if you're European or American or any other continental area on Europe, depends on where you're tuning in your agreement, right? That a certain region has looked for a certain time frame, a certain way. It's also just a collective agreement, but there are also numerous versions of what other continents on your planet look like, or looked like in your so-called past.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's more like I think of it as kind of like an art project. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Lord of the Rings and like the detailed maps of Middle Earth or the Game of Thrones worlds. Those continents, Westeros and Essos. I think it's kind of neat. So I mean, it's mainly just like an art project of mine. But well, anyway, like one thing that I'm wondering about, I'm trying to figure out like where I should draw the mountains. And if you look at the seafloor today, where Atlantis was, like along the mid-Atlantic, well, there's like three plates that meet like right in the center of where Atlantis was. There's like, the western plate, and then the east half kind of had like two plates. But anyway, like along those three lines, there's kind of like mountains on the seafloor today. Was it kind of like that? Whenever Atlantis was above water, like along the tectonic plates, there was mountains, or was it kind of like hills, or what?
land, written vessels bind for a correct term, land tolerant bridges, right?
But on the main island itself,
Yes.
like, what did you say land bridges?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Between what you're reaching now for your Irish, England, right? Those isles. Reaching from there to what you would consider the rounded circles that made up the city-state.
Yeah, but like on the main island itself, like, the center island, like where the three tectonic plates were there mountains along there, along the lines?
Where the tectonic plates press together, yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea like how tall they were? I mean, were they like enormous or were they just kind of like little hills?
They're smaller, hill-like, but again, depends what time frame you're asking.
Okay. So yeah, like what about the main river? Do you know like where the main or like the biggest or longest river or whatever, where it started and where it emptied into the sea?
We can't give you coordinates or anything like such.
Right, I understand. Can you say like at least where it emptied into the sea? Like, well, I don't know. Like, you guys might remember. I didn't ask David to take a look at it, but I had drawn a map before where I had the numbers 1 through 12 like in a position kind of like they would normally be on a clock. Like, can you say like where along, like, which part of the exterior part of the island it emptied into the sea?
First 6 to 9.
Okay. Where did it start at? Like the mountains at the middle of the island?
Yes. More or
Okay.
less.
Okay. Were there any deserts anywhere on the center, like the main island?
Not from where depends on the definition of deserts, but some of the mountainous regions were somewhat deserted, but not like a flat desert.
Okay. So, I mean, can you talk about like what the land in general, the land in general was like across the island? Like, was it kind of like there were, maybe a certain part had a lot of forest and other parts were kind of swampy and certain areas were like just used for farming and agriculture or stuff like that?
Large creeks were used for farming and agriculture, mainly, but the nature was mainly forest, shrubs, yes, shrubs and trees.
What side of, like, can you say, what side of the island had the most forest and, where the agriculture was mainly located at? Or was it kind of just all scattered throughout?
Agriculture more in the center, except mountainous regions, the forest more on the outsides, and well, the more mountainous region, so the flat land in between the water and the mountainous region, to a large degree is agriculture. Again, depends what time frame you're asking. Obviously, at some other points it was almost everything nature with hardly anything being terraformed.
Right. Do you know where the largest bay was? And when I say bay, I mean, well, I don't know, you probably know what I mean by bay, but like a kind of an area of land that's kind of like, goes into the main,
Yes.
Yeah, okay, you get it.
Southwest.
Southwest. Okay. So like did the main river like empty into the bay?
Yes.
Okay. Mm, do you have any idea, like, do you have any names that anybody has ever used for this bay or this river for that? Okay.
And none that would be written down or somewhat readable in any of your mythology that we're aware of.
Okay. And like we talked about the main city Atlanta a lot, and I talked with Metax about like another major one near the south part of the island that he said some people have called Atlantita. I mean, I'm not going to like ask you to describe where every single city was located, but I mean, just for the sake of the map, can you say like where some of the most important cities were that I should include on the map? Like, what part of the island they were located on, and like how big they were in comparison to one another?
Oh, Basilea, yes.
Wait, what was that?
Basilea,
That was the
from
name of the
Berber,
city?
term for a city, yes.
Can you spell it, please?
Well, possibly a B, A, S, I, L, E, A, for example. But again, your Latin alphabet obviously being much younger. Now, some of the cities were also their own islands that were somewhat connected to the mainland, right? So there
Right.
were a city-state or, well, a city island, right?
Right.
Reaching again all the way up to your English Channel, etc.
The city you just mentioned, the one that starts with a B, where was that one located?
Further east,
Can you say like I mean, was it on the coast?
it was linked to the main Atlantean area. There might still even be an island left that was linked to it.
But was it
it's
on
bombed.
was it on an island? Was it on its own island, or was it part of the main island of Atlantis?
For Berber, it was its own. It was mainly on the mainland, but it stretched similar perhaps to your city of Malmö and Copenhagen, right?
Okay. Um. Okay. Well. Can you give like the name and the position of like maybe I don't know, however many other cities you want to give? I guess one more would be fine for me for the sake of the map.
There was one location right near what you would consider Helgoland today, right?
Okay. But on the main island itself, like what do you think would be the most important one that I should draw besides Atlantis and I mean besides Atlanta and Atlantita?
Perhaps Basileia, but they are all more or less linked.
Okay.
The
Okay, well,
mythology is very messed up, so it's to some degree difficult to find detailed information vessels by and somewhat relatable to your storyline.
okay. Um and like I had asked you before about like the possibility of talking to the Inky person. I mean like I don't know if he would even be willing to talk to me, but do you think that's dangerous to talk to somebody like that?
Not
So like
necessarily.
somebody Okay.
Why?
I mean, somebody that dark, like, I don't know. I thought it might be. I mean, it's like talking to Lucifer, basically. But, well, yeah, I don't know.
Consider dark.
Do what? Say that again?
If you consider this entity particularly dark, from more vantage point, they're not as dark as mortal, for example.
Right. So where are Inky and Enlil? I mean, are they still literally incarnated in their same body that they were during the time of Atlantis, like in the third or fourth dimension?
Well, remember, there's no time frame, so yes and no. They are
Okay.
no longer the people they were interacting with the third dimensionality when they were in your play to some degree, or they are still alive, yes.
Okay. Okay, well, yeah, I guess that's all the questions that I have for you today. I still have a few I want to save the rest of my time for Metax. So, cool. Thanks, class, for answering my questions. Strength and honor, and talk to you guys later.
Strengths, other information to rhyme.
See you later, alligator. Bye.
Water, and then Jacob, you're up next.
Okay.
Yes. Greetings, the Jacob person.
Kalas! Greetings. So, yeah, well, had some interesting ideas since last time we spoke last time I spoke here last month. And one of them was just an impulse to start maybe coming up with an idea of casting your symbol into a certain mold or something like that. And I was wondering what kind of advice you might have on to that business venture at all, in terms of like the size, dimensions of everything, and just maybe the metal that it's made of or something like that.
Yes, stainless steel obviously being very appropriate. Any form of iron is acceptable. Gold.
Gold, yeah. Well, I was thinking of making some smaller ones out of silver or something like that, if that's appropriate at all.
Yes, it's also fine. Preferable iron.
Okay, iron. Well, iron has a very high melting point, so I'm not sure. I might have to blow oxygen or something into the furnace, but that's pretty dangerous. But I'm assuming that's kind of how you probably want it to be produced, right? High responsibility.
Nothing wrong with danger, yes.
All right, very interesting. Something else that got my attention recently was something like a metal crystal that you can grow. Is called bismuth. If you've heard of that, if David's familiar with it at all.
To some degree, yes.
Okay, well, yeah, I was just wondering if maybe, if any degree, that could actually be grown or something around your symbol or something, if that's might be appropriate at all to any degree, because yeah, it's just I'm not really too familiar with it. I've only heard of it recently, but still, it might have certain energetic properties. Because
Possible.
need water or anything.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes,
yeah,
you're
okay.
filling the right word, the vessel's mind for a certain metal, very heavy metal, right?
Right. Okay. So tungsten or something, is that a heavy metal that you're talking about?
Repeat.
Tungsten steel. It's something like a ferrous metal. It's very high density, but it's had very high melting point. I don't think I'll be able to cast that, but I think it's like
We're suggesting was a lower metal melting point.
oh, okay. Low melting point. Well, the only one I'm thinking of right now is mercury, but I'm assuming that's not what you're talking about.
That's also possible.
Huh. Okay. Sure. Okay. Well, I'll just look at metals with sort of low melting points but high densities, and if that's another thing that you want to look at, that's pretty cool. So any certain size, because the size I was picturing was something like maybe iPhone sort of width or something like that. So maybe like 15 or so centimeters, just something that's small enough for someone to carry around in their pocket, but they can just set it up somewhere, if anything like that.
Yes, there's one of your tiny hands in size.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds very appropriate. I've had a fair lot of questions about that, because ever since I I started getting the business, the idea going and buying materials and stuff. Obviously, things just didn't progress as fast as I wanted to, and I kind of fell flat on my face as I was doing it. But that was something I was expecting to happen anyway, because it happens to a lot of people, and I just understand that that has to do with certain shadow work that I might need to address, I suppose. And yeah, well, I've definitely been talking about it a lot recently in the last couple of months I've been bringing it up to Kang and one of the Tigress person that came through, but there still seems to be a lot of memories that I'm just sort of rejecting, or traumas that I don't really want to associate with or even admit that happened to myself. Like, if you're picking up on that at all.
Obviously, your entire species has to some degree.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting. Well, I suppose from that level of trauma, because it's just, I don't know, whenever I sort of try feeling my way into it or addressing it or something, it's always like with where there's smoke, there's fire analogy they're making. It's just always so much more extreme than I was expecting, and it's just a little bit, I don't know, it makes me sort of feel like a cowering child or something, because it's just kind of you're sitting in a space that you just wouldn't, you're not used to feeling that's who you are, because you're used to just feeling like you're the privileged, spoiled sort of person that everyone was saying that you are, and despite all this happening, and it's just a really weird shift to make. Is there any advice that you would make on that in particular?
Details.
Well, some of the memories that have sort of cropped up a little bit in flashes, and then as soon as they surface a bit more, I instantly start getting more drawn to an addiction or something to numb it, because I'm just not used to it. But I understand that's normal. But some obviously grey abductions is a very big part of it, I suppose. But a lot of the more extreme energies seem to come from Dracos and AI or something like that. And I was, wondering what you would be thinking of those specifically and how I could integrate them.
Just accept it.
Okay. Well, I've definitely been out in nature a lot and sitting by trees, and sometimes I remember, like, when I was being in a receptive state, I started seeing geometry by the trees. It was kind of intimidating. It was just weird seeing like a pentagram or something like that. But obviously your energy made those things a little bit less intimidating than otherwise. But your energy seems to come through very quickly and easily whenever as soon as I have the decision to bring it through. It's pretty much exactly like changing the channel on a television or something. And obviously I might use certain symbolism to stimulate it a bit, maybe like thinking of the pentagram or your symbol, or shitting out the iron chains, like you say, to the core of the earth. But
Yes.
yeah, and as I do that, well, I can definitely feel your influence, but you can only sort of give you a helping hand as far as I allow it to. And I suppose, well, with that level of rejection, is there anything maybe that could help sort of surface them more? Maybe just like just forcing myself to just sort of get into a little bit more detail about what it is, or anything like that, or just the memories?
No necessity really, other than to process the frequency itself.
Okay. Well, I'm assuming it's just normal right now to sort of branch off to other stuff and just like try to numb it immediately as soon as it comes up, because I'm not used to it. So I'm not really judging myself in that way.
To some degree you are.
Yeah.
Which is also fine.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I sort of ride with the punches, boxers say. But often when those things come through and there's a judgment, I sort of don't judge the judgment itself. I just sort of go with it and ride the frequency, just knowing that I'm judging myself, which kind of numbs it a bit. And well, not really numbs it, eases it a bit and settles it. But yeah, certainly I can just see. It's just weird because the thing that's been blocking me for so long is just there's some parts of my mind that are kind of not under the belief that it's because of repressed memories or something like that. And I was just wondering if that's true or not, if it's something else, or if that is the thing, and I'm just sort of blocking myself off from it so much that I just think that that's not the thing I should be addressing.
You can let whatever wants to grow up. It's probably a lot less traumatized than you imagine.
Well,
it's more fear of the knowledge than it being a trauma. The mind-altering process.
I see. Well, that's kind of relieving, I think. Well, I'll certainly integrate that. I suppose one more thing I was interested in is that, well, recently the two energies that came through, at least the later half of this month, were both the vortex energy as well as the super soldier program, just like in terms of on our Earth. And I was wondering what those two energies, why I would be drawn to them all of a sudden, would be about.
First and foremost, your idea of creating symbology, right? Vortex also has a certain interest in such, so therefore you are simply aligned with this particular frequency, and obviously they're having a warrior energy.
Right,
it's somewhat very similar to what you're currently looking for. Also what you're used to from numerous lifetimes.
Yeah, well, that was the impression I was getting, is it seems to be very unusual for me to not have a warrior lifetime, at least right now, currently. So I don't know, maybe there's just like some adjustment that I'm going through or something like that. But fortunately, I think that might make the shadow work a lot easier and nowhere near as unsettling or something like that. I'm not sure. I suppose that's pretty much all the questions I have for you, Kalask. Might move on to the felines later on, but yeah, I appreciate the help.
Yes, very welcome. The vessel is still a situation, the idea of having an unusual non-warrior-like incarnation, and perhaps also due to the learning of certain lessons, and remember, when you had such warlike incarnations, you were in conflict with our species, so perhaps also that's why we are in more diplomatic interaction right now instead of crossing blades, so to speak.
Right, okay. Well, that's understandable. Okay, strength and honor, Kalask.
Strength, honor, and hopefully a diplomatic resolution. Or not, where is necessary.
Yeah, very well. We'll see.
That's the end of the queue, Kalask.
Debbie, thank you for facilitating the conversation and we connect to the kitty cats. Until next direction, strength, honor, and strive to the collective.
Strength and honor.
Kalask! Thanks.
Welcome, Metax.
Nice interact with you. Understandable.
Yes, we can hear you. Does David need some water?
That's a good idea.
Did you have anything you wanted to say to us before we begin at the queue?
Just remember when you're going through turmoil that you're currently creating a new world, to always get back in your heart, get centered there, and remind yourself to be grounded at the same time. Ground also more frequency of your connectivity to your own self. It's not necessary that you are trying to leave your current identity behind or your current world or whatever in order to be in a state of bliss or alignment. You will otherwise create a certain split or rift inside yourself compared to when you remain grounded while you're pulling the energy of connectivity with your own higher self down to earth.
Well, that's good advice. Thank you.
Very welcome.
All right,
Well-
Ryan. Oh, there you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey again, Metax. Good to talk to you again.
Nice to interact with you again, Ryan.
Well, like, yeah, before I go into my questions, like, I want to apologize, basically. Like, the last time we talked, as you might remember, like, I was getting a little bit frustrated because, like, I thought you had said that, whenever we were talking about the location at Camelot, like, I thought you said that it was off my map, and then, like, you were saying it was, like, in the middle of the North Sea, kind of, which is, like, right on my map. So I was getting a little bit frustrated. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. But then, like, whenever I went back and listened to the recording, like, I realized that you didn't say it was off the map. You said it was off the coast. So, like, yeah, that the reason, like, I was getting so frustrated was because of my own stupidity, basically. Like, I misheard you. I thought you said something, and I don't know, it just caused a lot of confusion for myself. So, anyway, sorry, I was getting a little bit frustrated.
That's
But,
understandable.
yeah, I was also, like, as you may have been able to tell, like, I was really, like, still stressed out from my crappy job and the whole stress that was going on, like, around that time. But anyway, yeah, like, to move on to, like, I guess the main thing I wanted to talk about today, like, the Egyptian priest that we call Thoth, like, do you know anything about him, basically? Like, do you know if he's still alive and still incarnated in the same avian form that he was, like, back during the time of Atlantis?
The original priest became somewhat more of a title after an individual of a bird-like nature had left your world. Who is to some degree still alive again depends with those questions always. What time frame you're asking and what you're talking about. The title then being people that are emulating the character and they're simply carrying on the priesthood or whatever you wish to call it, and they're becoming more and more of a human nature, simply trying to emulate the frequencies with shorter lifespans. But the original predecessor, so to speak, is alive.
Okay. What do you know what dimension he's in? Or is he in multiple dimensions?
And originally he was the third, like he is now the fourth, fifth dimensionality. That's physical.
Okay. And, like, a lot of people believe that the Greek Olympian god Hermes is the same person as Thoth, and I don't know, like, maybe you or Kalask or both of y'all might have talked about it before. I don't remember exactly, but do you know if that's true? Is Thoth the same person as Hermes?
From what I understand, those cultures use, this was one the same individual, or at least one the same title.
Okay, but like the reason that confuses me is because Hermes
Yes,
is
I understand the different ideas of who and what they are also in species and roles.
right.
And the original person that left, again, the person of an avian nature is not necessarily the same as the title of the people that become later on. And also remember the storyline by the Greeks and Roman mythology are very often influenced by the older mythologies of those people that lived under their rule earlier, such as Sumerian or Egyptian or Atlantean for that matter. So some of it has been humanized, and some of it also refers to people of an overlay of people that then took over the role of being the Thod or the Hermes, like the priest title.
Okay, so are you saying that the way the Hermes person came about in our mythology was that it's basically just a humanization of the bird-like person Thoth, or was there ever an actual human or like a person that appeared human who had the name Hermes?
Both. There was a humanization of the role of such a title, and then there were indeed humans that fulfilled such a role who then became known under that label.
Okay. Man, that really confuses me. Like, so, but like whenever people say Thoth and Hermes are the same person, like, I don't know, was this like the same higher self that had two different incarnations?
If you wish to overcomplicate things, yes.
Okay. Um, so was Hermes, well, like, was Hermes, I don't know, would you consider it to be one person or multiple people?
Yeah, there was the person that is identical with Thoth, and then there were numerous others that fulfilled the role of the title of Hermes, who were a whole line of people.
Okay. Um, so are you able to exchange messages with the Thoth person, like the avian person?
So it's not the closest to my frequency personally, but that should be an option.
Okay. Um, well, I mean, like, uh, like I was talking to you about the last time during the private session, I was wondering if, you know, like a lot of the questions that I ask you about Atlantis, you're not too sure about, and I was asking if, asking somebody who was more familiar with Atlantis would be able to give more detailed information. And obviously, like, I can't think of anybody more qualified to talk about Atlantis than Thoth. I mean, he was, at least like from the way I understand it, he was kind of like the historian, the person who was, I don't know, maybe Inky and Enlil obviously knew a lot about Atlantis, but Thoth would be like one of the best people to talk to, in my opinion. Like, are you able to, like, can you now, if possible, like reach out to him and like see if he would be willing to talk to me, like, allow me to ask him questions about Atlantis and Egypt, if David would be willing to channel him?
Greetings.
Greetings. Who am I talking to? Is this Thoth?
You wish? Yes.
Wow, I wasn't expecting you to come in all of a sudden like this. Yeah, I don't have any questions written down for you. I was gonna see if you would be willing to talk to me first of all, and then I would have like written down 100 different questions to ask you. I'm kind of caught off guard right now. But anyway, cool. It's cool to talk to you. So I mean, like, are you the thought that we generally think of in our mythology, who the bird-like person who had the long beak?
Somewhat. I've influenced those stories. They're based on me.
Okay. Uh, so if you don't mind me asking, like, where are you now? Are you still on Earth or some other planet or something?
I am not a world, not a mention if you wish.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, like I said, I'm not going to get into any I'm not going to go through a long list of questions today, but like in the future, would it be okay with you if I asked like some, detailed questions about Atlantis and ancient Egypt?
That depends on the details. You can ask. I will decide what to share.
Okay. Um, And well, like one question that I have right now that I just thought of, like a few months ago, I bought a book which is like I don't know if it's real or not, but it's like some guy in a secret brotherhood during like the 1930s or whatever. Like somehow he came across some emerald tablets, like supposedly like 36 or so emerald tablets that you personally created, and then like he transcribed them and like published the translation into this book, and then like he said he returned the tablets to Egypt or something like that. And I don't know, like I started reading the book, and then like I kind of stopped reading it because like what he was saying seemed to not make much sense. It seemed like he was saying that Atlantis existed, I don't know, like 30 or 40,000 years ago, like much earlier than what Kalask and Metax told me it existed. But anyway, like first of all, do you know what I'm talking about? Like this book about with like the translation of the Emerald Tablets, and if so, like do you is are you indeed the person who created these Emerald Tablets?
I'm not aware exactly of what you're referring to in terms of tablets. I used tablets ever tablets existed. If those particular ones are indeed what this person had access to, or if they falsified information intentionally, is not up to my awareness.
Okay. Um. Well, like, do you agree with like whenever I talk to Kalask and Metax about Atlantis, they remind me all the time that time is malleable and it's hard to pin down an exact year. But generally, they say that like Atlantis sank sometime between 11,000 and 13,000 years ago. Is that like, do you consider that to be accurate?
Closer to 13,000, yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of like what I think too, because as you might know, like our geological record or whatever, like the ice records of Antarctica show that like Earth, well, it got really cold like about 12,900 years ago, and then there was like a warming period shortly after that. So I kind of like pinned down the year to like 12,900 years ago as like whenever Atlantis probably sank, because I'm sure it would have caused like kind of like a nuclear winter, and losing that much landmass in the Atlantic Ocean would have disrupted the sea currents and caused a big climate change. Um, so yeah, I guess 13,000 seems reasonable to me too. But anyway, like yeah, I don't have any time left to ask you any more questions. So yeah, I guess I'll go and like prepare a long list of a bunch of questions, and if it's okay with you, then like the next time I do a channeling session with the person you're talking through, I'll have him bring you back in and I'll ask you a bunch of questions. That's okay with you?
We can reinteract and then we shall see what will come of it. But
All
you will
right.
have the option to talk to me again. That's agreed.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Mr. Thoth, for talking to me. This is very awesome. You're one of the coolest persons that I've talked to. So thanks for talking to me. Okay, I don't know. Does anybody else have any questions they want to ask Thoth? Uh, if not, well, yeah, I'll say goodbye to you now, Thoth, and yeah, you can bring me text in, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Until then, another moment in what you interpret as time. Goodbye.
All right. Goodbye.
I suppose I could ask one question.
Hey, you still there?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I was just wondering because a lot of people tend to see you as being like a demonic sort of entity that people worship in cults, and I was wondering what your point of view on that is.
I don't necessarily divide the ideas of beings in what you would consider angelic or demonic.
Right.
Information
Okay.
is what matters to me to some higher level, not so much the frequency associated with those labels.
I see.
I understand there are different religious interpretation in your world of different beings and different ideas that you put labels on things, but I don't necessarily have an opinion.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, I just wanted to ask that. Okay, very well.
Yes, numerous gods from your numerous mythologies have been considered demonic or angelic, depending what other religious cults, etc., have been subjectively inclined to see as them. That's all for now. Goodbye.
Okay, goodbye.
Yes. Versions.
Yeah. Hey,
Metax,
Metax.
I was just gonna ask if you need some water.
Yes, that's a good idea, but you can bring up questioning while refilling.
I was just going to say thanks, Metax, for putting me through the Thoth. That was very awesome and unexpected. But thanks. Yeah, much love, Metax, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
And hello, Metax. I would like to speak to Sihar, if that's possible.
Thanks, Casper. I won't correct.
Thank you.
Greetings.
Greetings, Sihar. I know that you're giving me healing when we speak in these sessions, but I'm wondering if I then listen to a recording of these sessions, do I then receive healing once more?
Yes, it's not as effective and strong as when it's directly as you're calling it live. But nonetheless, my frequency, not just for you, but anybody else should be ingrained in any recording.
Excellent. And can you then feel when we are listening to the recording later? Like, can you feel our energy?
I can feel it now.
Yes, I know, but I was curious if you can also feel when I'm listening. We're listening to it at a later point in time.
And then what?
In a later point of time, like if I listen to it tomorrow, can you also feel that?
I'm being ironic. Your listening of it tomorrow can be felt by me now.
Wow. Okay. So does that mean that you already know by now how many times I will listen to this session?
There's a potential unlimited number that you will listen to the session. It just depends on what version of yourself. You know the nature of time by now, at least intellectually, or what version of yourself will decide to tune to my frequency and what you consider different directions, and my current version that you're interacting with is aware of what it really does.
Okay.
It's
So
quite simple, really.
well, yeah, I suppose from your viewpoint it is, but then I suppose that you are listening to all the versions of me listen or are feeling all the versions of me listening to this. That must be quite a big number.
Since it's all of my versions, it's appropriate.
Yes, there are many of you to carry the burden, right? Okay.
An
I was
infinite
wondering.
amount.
Sorry, what was that?
An infinite amount.
Yes. And I was wondering if you could ask my higher self if it has anything that it wants to say to me, anything it wants me to do.
Yes, usually. Sacredly grounding is something you could enhance.
Okay. And is that all what my higher self has to say to me?
Your heart could also open further. As someone with self-judgment. All it says to do with relaxation or lack thereof, which would be greatly beneficial for any healing endeavor. Simply a recharge, allowance, self-love. Remember, if you want to share energy, first charge your own love up and then let it pour over, not the other way around.
Yes. Well, it's actually very difficult for me to feel love. I mean, when I'm in love with somebody, of course I can feel that easily, and also if there's somebody I really like without actually being in love with them, I can also kind of feel like positive emotions. But when I'm just kind of in a normal state where it's just me and there's nobody that I'm particularly close to, it's quite difficult to feel any kind of love in my heart.
That's the most peculiar state of being in your species. We all agree on that here, more or less. Love is a state of being, not necessarily an emotion. You have or you don't have, it's just a state of being. You're
But
just using others as a permission, as an excuse.
then when I don't have such an excuse, how do I how do I how do I get into the feeling of love?
But I understand you don't need an excuse. It's a very strange question. It sounds to me very similar. How do you breathe? Or how do you exist? It is a normal, natural state of being. It's actually that you put up blockages to it that keeps you out of it. So
Okay,
just allowance.
but how do I practically do that?
By existing.
Well, yes, but I'm doing that already, and that doesn't seem to help.
You keep yourself from it actively. You fight against yourself. Why? Just stop doing that.
Well, I I don't really know what it is that I'm doing that is fighting against it. I don't feel like I'm actively fighting, although I'm sure that you're right, but I don't really know what it is that I'm doing, so it's difficult to stop it.
Just let it flow. It's a very strange concept you're having in your world. Can you sense your heart?
Well, it's kind of difficult. I mean, I can focus on trying to open my chakra, and then I that might feel that's just a little bit, but not much. But I don't really feel like any energy in it or any love flowing or anything like that.
Then use my energy as excuse if necessary.
Yes, and I've been trying to connect to you several times since we last spoke, but it's like I don't really feel the connection. So am I doing something wrong or what?
Yes, you're not loving yourself. Or at all. That's the paradox. I cannot give you any more of it unless you come halfway. If you're stuck in a frequency, it's like there's no opening.
Yes, but it also feels for me like there's no opening. I don't know what to do to kind of like open up that connection or that feeling of love. There's nothing that I can really think of that would make me happy to think about and make me feel like connected to other beings or things like that.
Then why is there a desire for you to interact with me?
Well, I mean, even though I rarely feel anything, I still have like intellectual curiosity, and also towards speaking with you, but it's not like I'm really feeling so much, and I would love to feel more. I would like to feel things. It's not like I don't want to. I just don't know how to.
Somebody else's state to some degree from with other beings, reptilian nature, for example, and also some of your kind. Even though I don't fully comprehend it, I understand it exists. I would use my species as an excuse, if you will, or as a reason. I don't really need one. But as being who I am is reason enough for me. Why can't it be for you? Or anybody else in your species for that matter?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not like I feel like I'm proud of being human, or that I'm really being of much help to anybody or the universe by being human. So I don't really know what it is I should kind of like appreciate about myself or love about myself.
That if nothing else, just your connection to me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So you're saying I should just focus on you and think about you, and that will kind of help open up my feelings and connections to love.
If you need it, as an excuse.
Well, I absolutely need some excuse.
Not really, but if you want to have that experience, yes.
Okay, I will try that. And also I'm kind of feeling quite stuck in my life currently due to my health conditions that has been going on for several years. So can you ask my higher self if it feels like it's getting anything out of my life currently?
Otherwise, there would be no experience of such.
And
But of course, you're disconnecting from your higher self also by making the second guesses. That's the paradox.
okay, and can you ask it what it is getting out of my current incarnation?
The understanding of what it's like to be cut off.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm happy that at least it's getting that out of it. Supposing, of course, that it can actually feel it. It's not just so disconnected from me that it can't even feel what it's like to be cut off. Okay. And last monthly session, you said that you had previously connected with other beings in my world that were more evolved than me. And would you like to share with us what kind of beings that was and what you were talking about with them?
To some degree, I've interacted with entities of a more similar nature as mine, and then those of a more similar nature as you, in both those energetic exchanges. And I still do.
Okay, so the beings you referred to, that was like regular third or fourth dimensional cats that I am also able to see and interact with.
Some, yes.
Okay, and were you also connecting with higher dimensional, like 5 or 6 dimensional cats or felines here on Earth?
Yes, feline energies, if you want to call it cats, yes, to some degree it's a correct part of the larger species.
Okay, and where do they exist? Do they exist inside the Earth or on the surface like me?
In the frequency field, as far as something can exist on the surface or inside on a higher dimensionality, yes. Some of them are even on a level of the non-physical, so they still carry a feline energy.
Okay, but so are you saying that there are like 5 or 6 dimensional felines walking around on the surface of Earth?
They don't really walk, they float more, but yes.
Oh, wow, awesome.
Sometimes I'm one.
Well, yes, but I mean, you are not here on Earth, right? You are on a ship or on Sigurd, right?
Yes, sometimes I can come to Earth.
Okay.
But of course, I would not come to the physical.
Oh, Sihar, now you're disappointing me a little bit. I was just about to ask if you
Yes,
were on
I'm
Earth.
aware. That's why I wanted to intercept before, well, too late.
Sorry, what was that?
That's why I intercepted, because I want to make sure that you don't get overexcited too early. But it would, of course, also be possible to have interaction. But then you would have to meet me halfway, which brings us back to the earlier question of discussion.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Right. Well, that definitely makes me want to try the connection even more. I would like to meet you or some other high dimensional felines in directly. Okay.
Well, yes, there you have your motivation.
Excellent. Thank you, Sihar. And then I'm curious to hear what do you typically talk about with other felines when you socially interact with them, like on your own planet or on your own spaceship?
We exchange information about certain details of our endeavors, things we learn here and there, but very often it's also just an energetic exchange. It's not necessarily exchange of information intellectually. So we just share more energies. But sometimes it's also something you might consider an informational piece on exploration.
Okay, and then what when you are home with your family or like your parents or just friends home on Sigurd, what would you typically talk about with them?
Depends what their interests are. Some of them are still what you would consider warriors, others scientists or diplomats. Those different roles that you would attribute to a certain job in society. So it depends what their endeavors are and how we interconnect.
Yes, okay, that makes sense. And then considering how quickly artificial intelligence is set to evolve, I'm a bit puzzled by why the entire universe has not yet been taken over by a race of hostile physical superior robots, as it would be. It would only take one society with an advanced hostile self-replicating robot force to take over everything. So are there limitations that apply to artificial intelligence robots, but not to biological beings, such as, for instance, being able to travel about light speed or jump from one dimension to another or stuff like that?
But I think that the latter, dimensional shifting,
Okay,
Once
so
they've taken over a certain physical realm, they're limited to it.
okay, and when you say physical realm, do you mean an entire dimension or just just a single planet?
Both. An entire dimension, but in that dimension, of course, they're limited much more by the physical than if they could exist in a higher dimensionality where you could much easier bilocate, etc.
Okay. Okay.
In other words, if you lock a physical entity in a cage, it's in a cage, but if it could shift dimension, the cage would be of no necessity or no meaning.
Yes. Okay, but I mean, like, if here on Earth, if we ever get to construct like third-dimensional robots that are able to self-replicate and float through space, then are you saying that they would only take over Earth and that would be it, or would they generally spread to the entire three-dimensional universe?
Possibly try to spread, they would be limited, however, by time and space, since the universe is expanding, and they could only expand while the universe expands because they're still stuck in time.
Okay, so you mean that while physical biological beings are able to kind of like jump from one point to another, the robots would not be able to do that.
At least they can learn to do so.
Okay, well then that brings me back to how come then that we are not yet been taken over by such robots? I mean, from the billions of species out there, there must be at least one who has constructed three-dimensional robots that have gone rogue and taken away everything.
They have been destroyed from what I understand. There was a problem in the empire of the reptiles and war about such. I'm not exactly certain how they got things under control or if they ever have. But there are certain agreements and conflicts between different species of what's being allowed for them and for others, and simply different forces pulling in different directions.
Okay. Okay. And Metax told Ryan last time that we can access the Akashic records ourselves. So, do you have an easy way for us to do it, other than being able to astral project, which has proven harder than I originally thought?
Yes, make it less harder. Your choice. It's only as hard as you decide it to be. Again, going with the flow.
Yes, but I mean, every night when I go to bed, I try to focus on now I want to astral project, and yet it only seems to work like once or maybe twice a month. And as soon as I think about the astral, the Akashic records or going out to you, then I wake up instead.
Yes, perhaps you find a state in deep meditation, or in the mornings after you wake up and you're not fully awake. You get your brain waves the light lengths that you're not in REM sleep or wide awake, but somewhere in between. Slightly easier to fall asleep and remember that you are sleeping, lucid dreams, so to speak. You're coming from the opposite end. It's, from what I understand, often easier in your species.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Do you have anything that you would like to tell me or to ask me?
Why do you keep second guessing yourself so much about so many different topics?
Well, because if it doesn't work, I need to change something, and I need to find out what it is I should change. Otherwise, if I'm just kind of like lying there not changing anything, then I suppose that the outcome will not change either.
Yes, but there's a necessity for you to create blockages or conflicts about it. Just go with the flow. Oh, and yes, sir, I could also need some touching.
You know, it sounds so easy when you say it, like just go with the flow, but when you don't know how to do that, then it's really
frustrating with your species sometimes, from my personal direction as well as others of my kind. We are trying our best to have interaction with you and meet you halfway, but I also understand you might have trouble connecting to things that for us come so naturally. It's difficult to explain.
Yes. Okay. Right. And then, would you like to tell me about what the most common things to do for fun as a feline is?
Depending on development stages, you often just bask in energy. Same way, obviously, as you're familiar with basking in the sunlight, for example, to bask in the energy of some field there is. You're sort of a creative species. Very often we work with energies, and it might not look like work from the outside, but it is, but it's also very enjoyable. Telepathic communication is certainly one of the most enjoyable.
And what about humor? Do you use that a lot? And what kind of humor do you use?
Part of our enjoyment of being alive. We don't really separate laughter and fun, etc., from the rest of the experience. It's not that we tell jokes or something like such, but perhaps humorous energies underlining any form of relaxation or recreation. Situational humor, perhaps.
And what is that?
It is simply intertwined with the pure enjoyment of life.
Okay. Okay. And how old is your son by now? I mean, is he like a teenager or a kid, or is he grown up, or how far is he?
From a currently asking a young teenager,
Okay. And is he aware of me, like the human incarnation you have as me?
to some degree. Not much with interest, but awareness, yes.
Okay. So does he have any messages for me or anything he would like to ask me?
He finds you rather peculiar.
Okay.
The looks seem very strange. The hairlessness. Why you keep sabotaging yourself?
Yes.
Something he cannot comprehend. It's
Okay. And does he have any advice or questions for me?
so just open your third eye more so it's easier to communicate.
Okay. Well, actually, from my perspective, it seems like my third eye is the most open chakra I have. Do you see that differently?
Your sister's more is confused. You're very well grounded now. But you seem to interrelate being grounded or being open to the outside.
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
Being grounded or being open to anything outside of your consciousness, you alternate between one and the other. Yes, third eye is doing all right, not as bad as the heart or say or others perhaps, but it could certainly be better in terms of interpreting frequencies. Your crown is wide open, but your third eye is still somewhat more hampered. Nothing to worry or stress about. But if you wish to communicate to a larger degree and have a better understanding for beings such as us over here,
Okay. I will try to work a bit more on my third eye. At least that's quite easy for me because that's a chakra I can easily open. I just thought it was sufficiently open, and I should work more on the others.
it helps to also work on there so you have more frequency coming in from up, so that frequency they can use, or energy if you will, on your heart, for example.
Okay. Tihar, thank you so much for speaking to me. I'm out of time, unfortunately, but it was very nice to speak to you, and I also very much appreciate the healing that you give me. And if you feel like sending me energetic invitations and I'm able to meet you halfway, I would love to do that so I can come visit you in Astral. So much love and appreciation.
Much love and appreciation to you, and if there's no one else having any further ideas and communication, I will leave you all with my love. Goodbye.
Bye. So Jacob, I think it's up to you if you want to speak to Sihar, if you want to go back to Metax.
I think I might go back to Metax, but greetings, yeah, it's good. I just want to say hi again before I go. Anyway.
And before you go, Jacob, just check to see if you need some water first.
Okay, sure. Greetings, Metax.
Greetings, Jacob.
Does David need any water before we get going?
Yes, that's a good idea, but if you have an inquiry, you can bring it up.
Okay, very well. I haven't spoken to Myra in a while, so I think I might want to bring her through. She's actually very peculiar. I still don't exactly know who she is exactly, even after all this time.
Yes, I will connect you to her.
Thank you. Much love.
Hi.
Hey, Myra. How are
Nice to connect to you.
you? Yeah, well, I just felt like bringing you through again because it's been a while. But just how's your frequency? I understand through time it's sort of made difference in frequency. I'm just curious about, I suppose, what's happened so far.
Yes, understand. I am connecting to you whenever you're pulsing out frequency, if you're aware of it or not.
Well, yeah, I mean, that seems to happen a fair bit more than I realized, but yeah, as I was talking with the reptiles, I don't know, it's an interesting process I'm going through right now. I mean, I certainly have judgments, but at the same time, I'm working on myself every day, and I understand that the fact that if I feel frustrated about blockages, that's the thing that's making me blocked, because that's a judgment, and it's actually great learning process from that. And sort of like the spear analogy they make is, as soon as I realize there's something blocking me, I can sort of harness that definition and then use it for something else. So it's just, and I'm also getting more context for why it seems so difficult at the same time, which is, I suppose, very helpful, because obviously there's the setback of the scale. I'm not really comprehending the scale of what I'm doing and what I want, because I assume the energy is nowhere near as strong as it actually is, just unconsciously, well, not really unconsciously, more biologically assuming, if that makes sense. Do you want to talk about that at all?
You're intellectualizing.
Yeah, I tend to do that, don't I?
Not necessary.
Well, I suppose feeling's just a newish thing for me to do, so, but at the same time, it's just something I suppress a bit. But shadow work, as I was talking to Kalask about, is just something, I don't know. It's just like it's a little bit. I always underestimate how much I reject deeper aspects of my consciousness, and
It's
I
also
suppose,
fine.
yeah. Well, that's the thing, is sort of writing with judgments. I suppose if there's anything, because I mean I have a couple of questions for you, but if there's anything you want to talk about when it comes to doing those shadow works, I suppose just letting them in and opening it up. But any things that I suppose you want me to look out for as I'm opening up?
Be aware that you're always in charge of everything that comes up. It's not something that comes outside of you.
I understand that intellectually, but I suppose there are some parts that I might be subverting. Yeah. Well, last month I brought in the Tigress person, which was very peculiar because it was a strange impulse to get, and it actually ended up being very interesting and something I'm curious about exploring even further. I was wondering how you've been implementing those frequencies since I brought them through, in terms of you and also Gatha in general.
It's simply interesting if you interact with somebody else who has a frequency of a not too distinct nature, but it's nice to make those connections, and obviously the connection has been there already on some level, or we could have not both interacted through you in the same fashion.
Yeah, that's what I was picking up on, at least, that there was sort of a similar range, so similar bandwidth anyway. But I have plenty of questions for you, but as I talked about before, and this seems to happen with me, is I kind of get a bit beside myself a lot when I talk to you guys in particular, and I suppose, well, I'm pretty sure you've noticed that. I mean, do you want to talk about that at all? I mean, I say that a lot, but
If there's something more in detail you're interested in general, there's not much to be said under what has been said already.
I suppose it's just there is, yeah. Well, I mean, just allowing that in. That's just a strange idea, but I guess just letting myself allow it to be confusing, which I feel Metax sort of come through when I think of that sort of disposition. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is, because it seems sort of foreign to me, but when it comes to ideas like magic or something like that, just controlling energy in a way that's quite normal for you and for your collective and for a lot out there. So just how does that really feel? Like, how does just tuning into magic feel to you? And I suppose you could talk about it.
Comes quite naturally, honestly.
Is there any description you want to elucidate on at least? Because I remember talking to Kang about combat last time, but
Yes, I look in this person to see if there's something relatable. Exhilarating. So it feels increase the intensity of everything else.
interesting. Okay.
Pulsating sensation, yes.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, third eye seems to pulsate a lot when I meditate it to pretty much anybody, actually, even Kalask. But
Yes, that's a sign of opening.
oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's good. I suppose it's just, I don't know. You kind of, I suppose I am understanding why people do the whole "don't give up" sort of thing about everything, because it seems like, especially once, well, I've been doing activities and just making sure I do them, but not so much just doing. It's strange with disciplines because very often I start doing them, but I'm subverting an aspect of myself, and that's why that doesn't really develop. But now I'm opening myself up, and it's sort of like halfway through the range of development expected, at least just in terms of opening myself up. I think I'm about 50 days into tools, I suppose. Ever since spring began, I at least have just been making sure to go out in nature every time, at least times, or at least dusk, dawn, whenever I can, to sort of allow myself to start feeling energies. And it's been, it gets a little bit confusing. I suppose apparently I'm about halfway through starting to see anything, but I don't know. Sometimes it just feels like if I'm just developing at all or not. But I suppose that judgment is the thing that might make a blockage anyway. So.
Yes, there might also be some fail-safe mechanism that you don't bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah. Well, is there any way that I can sort of chew more?
Yes, by being more allowing of what you already have, also a certain degree of thankfulness or embracing, perhaps a better term.
Thankfulness, embracing. Okay.
Yes, the best way I can reword it.
Okay. I suppose. It's just as I spoke to Kalask just before about the traumas that might be coming up, and they seem to. And then when I sort of integrate them, that's when I notice the energy actually starting to get a hold and move forward at all. And often images start coming up like dragons or something like that whenever I do. But what I suppose what your point of view on those traumas are, because I remember bringing them up to Tigress, if we want to call her that, or White Tigress, as David put her in the title. But she seemed to have a bit of, I'm not sure if pity's the right word, but I don't know. It was just a different emotion than to what Kalask brought up, and that I suppose that's interesting to me. But obviously they'd have different points of view. So if you want to just have your point of view on that at all, I suppose could be helpful for sort of integrating.
Yes, I'm perhaps on the same page. Compassion being also interesting, important.
Okay.
For yourself, first and foremost, right?
Compassion for myself.
Hey, Jacob, we're at the end of the session, just letting you know.
Okay. Well, okay. Thanks, Myra. I appreciate that. I suppose we have to go back to Metax now, but I'll certainly bring in your frequency more again, as I typically do. But thanks for helping me out a lot with everything. Thanks for your whole planet, really.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the feedback, and until our next interaction, whatever means possible.
Goodbye.
Greetings. Oh my God.
Hey, Metax. We're at the end of the session.
Well, I thank you for the interaction, all of you, for giving me the opportunity to teach and learn, and for our entities to do the same. Those that were present and those that were just listening in, just like on your side, as every say is reflection. Goodbye for now. Much love to all of you. Until our next interaction.
Much love,
Much love,
Metax.
Metax.
Much love.